80 pounds disappeared from my body, not because I ate less or trained harder, but because I finally fixed one quiet problem most weight loss advice ignores, and once that switch flipped, everything else followed. For years, the scale refused to move no matter how disciplined I was. And what shocked me most was learning that my body was not broken, lazy, or lacking willpower. It was overloaded. In this video, I am breaking down the real reason the weight stayed stuck and the simple daily change that helped my body start releasing fat naturally without extreme diets, exhausting workouts, or expensive programs. This story is not about a miracle cleanse or a quick fix, and it is not about starving yourself into submission. It is about how the liver quietly controls fat burning hormones, cravings, and energy, and how ignoring it can make weight loss feel impossible even when you are doing everything right. Most people focus only on calories, steps, and gym routines, but science shows that when the liver is overwhelmed, fat loss slows down, blood sugar becomes unstable, and hunger signals go haywire. That was exactly my situation, and until I addressed it, no plan worked for long. In the next few minutes, you will learn what the liver actually does with fat, why modern food habits overload it so easily, and how supporting it can unlock steady, sustainable weight loss. I will also explain why the word detox has been misunderstood, why harsh cleanses often backfire, and what gentle support really looks like in daily life. This approach surprised me because it was almost boring in its simplicity, yet the results were dramatic over time. Energy improved first, then cravings faded, then weight finally started coming off without the constant fight. By the end of this video, you will understand why so many people fail, despite discipline, what signals your body gives when your liver needs help, and how one small habit can change how your body handles fat. Stay with me till the end, because the final insight ties everything together and could save you years of frustration, wasted effort, and self-blame. If you care about losing weight in a way that actually works with your body instead of against it, this is information you do not want to miss. Welcome to the channel, where we break down health topics simply and honestly, and if you want more content like this, make sure you subscribe now so you do not miss what's coming next. For a long time, weight loss felt like a simple math problem that everyone claimed was already solved. Eat less food, move your body more, repeat until the scale goes down, and if it does not work, the assumption is always that effort is missing or discipline is weak. That belief is everywhere, on social media, in fitness ads, in doctor offices, and even in casual conversations. And it sounds logical on the surface because calories do matter and movement is healthy. I followed that advice exactly the way it was given. Smaller portions, fewer treats, more walking, more workouts, stricter rules, and for short periods, the scale would move just enough to create hope, only to stall, creep back up, or completely freeze no matter how consistent I stayed. Over time, the problem was not lack of trying, it was exhaustion, hunger that never fully went away, cravings that hit out of nowhere, and a body that seemed to fight back harder the more I pushed. This is where frustration grows, because when the standard advice fails, people blame themselves instead of questioning the system. What rarely gets discussed is that weight loss is not only about what goes in and what gets burned. It is also about how the body processes, stores, and releases energy, and that process depends heavily on what is happening inside, especially in organs that never get the spotlight. When results do not last, it is often because something internal is blocking progress quietly and consistently, even while the outside behavior looks perfect. One of the most overlooked players in this process is the liver, an organ that works nonstop behind the scenes, filtering, processing, converting, and regulating far more than most people realize. The liver decides what happens to fat after you eat, whether it gets burned for energy or stored for later, and it also helps control blood sugar levels, hormone balance, and the signals that tell you when to eat and when to stop. When the liver is working smoothly, the body handles food efficiently, energy feels steady, and fat loss can happen naturally over time. When the liver is overloaded or sluggish, the entire system slows down. Even if calories are reduced and exercise increases, fat processing becomes inefficient, meaning the body leans towards storage instead of release, especially around the belly. Hormones that control hunger and fullness become unbalanced, which can make cravings feel intense and constant. Even after eating enough, blood sugar swings become more frequent, leading to energy crashes that push people toward quick snacks and sugary foods, not because of weakness, but because the body is trying to stabilize itself. The liver also plays a key role in detoxification, not in the trendy sense of flushing toxins overnight, but in the steady, daily job of breaking down waste, excess hormones, alcohol, medications, and byproducts from normal metabolism. When this workload becomes too heavy, the liver prioritizes survival tasks over fat burning, and weight loss quietly moves to the bottom of the list. Many modern habits add to this overload without people realizing it. Processed foods are one of the biggest contributors because they often contain refined oils, additives, and artificial ingredients that require extra effort for the liver to break down. Even foods marketed as low-calorie or diet-friendly can create stress internally, leading to inflammation and slower metabolic function. Sugar adds another layer of strain, especially when consumed frequently throughout the day, because excess sugar that cannot be used immediately is converted into fat in the liver, gradually increasing fat storage inside the organ itself. Late-night eating disrupts the liver's natural rhythm, since this organ performs much of its repair and maintenance work during sleep, and heavy meals close to bedtime force it to keep processing instead of restoring. Constant snacking, even on small portions, keeps insulin elevated and prevents the liver from switching into fat release mode, creating a state where the body is always storing and rarely burning. Over time, these patterns create a traffic jam inside the body where signals get crossed, energy feels low, and fat loss becomes resistant. In this state, weight gain is not the core problem. It is a symptom, a visible signal that something deeper is out of balance. The body is not failing, it is adapting to stress, overload, and constant input by choosing the safest option it knows, which is storage. Understanding this shift changes the entire perspective on weight loss, because it explains why pushing harder often leads to worse results, and why addressing internal health can unlock progress without extreme measures. When the liver begins to get the support it needs, even small changes can lead to noticeable differences. Hunger becomes more manageable, energy stabilizes, digestion improves, and the body starts letting go of stored fat at a pace that feels natural instead of forced. This is why focusing only on eating less and exercising more misses a critical part of the picture, because without a healthy internal environment, the body resists change as a form of protection, not punishment. The change itself did not arrive with drama, rules, or a sense of urgency, and that was the first reason it worked. There was no announcement to the world, no strict plan taped to the fridge, and no feeling of starting over on a Monday. The simple trick was creating a daily window that allowed the liver to rest and reset instead of constantly processing food. That meant eating meals within a consistent time frame each day and giving the body a long break overnight with nothing but water. This was not about extreme fasting, skipping meals, or pushing hunger to the edge. It was about stopping the non-stop intake that kept the liver working around the clock. When food arrives all day and late into the night, the liver never gets a pause, and without that pause, fat burning stays switched off. By creating a predictable eating rhythm, the liver finally had time to catch up on its core jobs, clearing stored sugar, breaking down excess hormones, and shifting from storage mode to release mode. This approach supported the liver because it worked with its natural daily cycle instead of fighting it. The liver is most active at night when it comes to repair and cleanup, and avoiding late meals meant it could focus on that work instead of digesting another snack. It was easy to stick to because it did not require special foods, supplements, or counting anything. Meals stayed normal, social life stayed intact, and hunger adjusted gradually without force. There was no feeling of being trapped in a plan or waiting for a cheat day, which removed the mental pressure that usually leads to quitting. Days felt calmer around food, and decisions became simpler without turning into obsession. As this routine settled in, subtle changes appeared before any visible transformation. Appetite began to feel more predictable, not loud one moment and silent the next, but steady and reasonable. Meals felt satisfying again, and the urge to snack between them faded without effort. Energy stopped crashing in the afternoon, and mornings felt clearer instead of foggy. Digestion improved quietly, with less heaviness after meals and less bloating by the end of the day. The body felt less inflamed, less reactive, and more cooperative overall. Fat loss started to feel easier not because of discipline, but because resistance dropped. Clothes fit differently, movement felt lighter, and progress no longer required constant mental control. Only later did the scale reflect what the body had already been signaling for weeks. The weight came off slowly and steadily over time, adding up to 80 pounds lost through consistency rather than intensity. There was no single moment where everything changed, just a series of small wins that stacked together as the body regained balance. This was not overnight, and it was not effortless, but it was sustainable, and that made all the difference. Before going any further, it is important to slow the story down and ground it in reality, because the last thing this approach needs is exaggeration or false hope. This is not a magic cure, and it never was. Nothing about supporting the liver overrides basic biology or replaces the need for consistent habits over time. The body does not suddenly erase years of stress, poor sleep, processed food, and inactivity because of one change, and anyone promising that is selling fantasy, not health. Detox in this context does not mean extreme cleanses, harsh juices, fasting for days, or flushing the body with powders and teas. Those methods often create more stress, more hormone disruption, and more rebound weight gain, especially for people who are already struggling. The liver is not a dirty filter that needs to be shocked into working. It is a smart, adaptive organ that responds best to stability, rhythm, and reduced overload. Supporting it simply means removing constant pressure and giving it space to do the job it is designed to do. Lifestyle still matters, and it always will. Sleep affects how the liver manages blood sugar and fat. Movement helps improve insulin sensitivity and circulation. Food quality influences inflammation and nutrient balance. Stress changes hormone signals that directly impact fat storage. Ignoring these factors while focusing on one habit would miss the point entirely. What made this approach effective was not that it replaced everything else, but that it made everything else work better. It lowered resistance inside the body, so healthy choices finally produced results instead of frustration. This distinction matters because skepticism often comes from people who have tried too many promises that failed, and that skepticism is earned. The goal here is not to convince anyone that this is the only way or the perfect solution, but to explain why so many people struggle despite real effort, and how internal balance plays a role that is often ignored. This approach will not override chronic overeating, constant sleep deprivation, or unmanaged stress, and it does not give permission to ignore basics. It simply removes one major roadblock that keeps progress locked in place for many people. This message is especially important for those who feel tired of being blamed, tired of being told to try harder, and tired of plans that work briefly before falling apart. If stubborn fat has refused to budge no matter how carefully food is controlled, if fatigue shows up even after full nights of sleep, if digestion feels off more days than not, and if diet after diet has ended in disappointment rather than progress, this may speak directly to that experience. This is for the person who feels like their body is fighting them instead of responding, who has followed instructions, counted portions, stayed consistent, and still felt stuck. It is for those who sense that something deeper is off but cannot quite name it. The frustration, the self-doubt, and the quiet fear that nothing will ever work are all part of this pattern, and they deserve to be acknowledged instead of dismissed.
This approach does not promise perfection, but it offers a different starting point, one that respects how the body actually works and why it resists change when it feels overloaded. For people who feel unseen by generic advice and exhausted by constant resets, this perspective can be the first step toward understanding that the struggle was never about lack of effort, but about addressing the right problem in the first place.
If this perspective resonated with you, the best next step is not to change everything at once, but to try this approach for a short period and simply observe what happens. Pay attention to your hunger, your energy, your digestion, and how your body feels day to day, because those signals often change before the scale ever does. Everyone's body responds differently, and your experience matters more than any rule or trend. Share what you notice in the comments, whether it is a small win, a question, or even a doubt, because those conversations help others who feel stuck and unsure where to begin. If you found value in this breakdown and want more clear evidence-based health content without hype or extremes, support the channel by liking this video and sharing it with someone who might need a new perspective. And make sure you subscribe so you do not miss what's coming next, because more practical insights like this are on the way.